Welcome, everybody, to the Ambition Project Show. I'm your host, Deirdre Sanborn. On this show, I interview ambitious leaders who share their big ideas about affecting positive change in their lives, in their organizations, and in their communities, so that you, the listener, may be inspired to do the same. If you like what you hear on the show, subscribe to it on iTunes or on my website at www.theambitionprojectshow.com. Today, I am joined by Steven Shapiro, Hall of Fame speaker, author of Best Practices Are Stupid, and an advisor on innovation. Steven's standard approach to innovation is to never take the standard approach. His books provide the blueprint for bringing innovation into business and life. His insights have transformed the way that companies like Nike, NASA, and USAA tackle innovation within their organizations. So welcome, Steve.
It's great to be here. Looking forward to this.
I'm so honored that you decided to come on the show. So I've told the audience a little bit about you. Tell us about how you started your career. I understand that you were a consultant at Accenture.
I was. I spent the first 15 years of my career there. And it's great when you have an opportunity to work for a company like that because you're so focused on so many different clients, so many different industries, so many different problems that it gives you a lot of different perspectives that you wouldn't get if you were sitting in a cubicle every day.
Right. And so what was your first breakthrough around the innovation piece? I mean, there's so many consulting firms are out there, and there are not many people who break out to become a Hall of Fame speaker and speak about innovation to some of the biggest companies in the world.
It's actually, I find this an interesting story in terms of how I got into innovation. It wasn't something I had planned. When I was at Accenture, this was around 1992, 1993. At that time, business process reengineering was really popular. Some of the people may not know what that is. But basically what it was is we would go into companies and we would optimize the way they worked. We would make them more efficient. Mm-hmm. And so I was one of the co-leads of our business process reengineering practice, it was massive. It was like about 40% of our revenues were tied to it in one form or another. It was a really big deal. And then one day I was working on a project and I had this realization, without boring you with all the details, I had this realization that the work that I was doing was resulting in lots and lots and lots of people losing their jobs. And I had a bit of an existential crisis. I realized I didn't want to do this anymore. I took a 6-month leave of absence. And during that time, I vowed that I would never be involved with even one person losing their job. So this was like 1995 where I started this epiphany. And basically for the past over 20 years now, I have only helped companies grow. I've focused on innovation. We didn't call it innovation in the very, very beginning of it, but we knew it was about business growth. Innovation was a popular topic 20 years ago when I started working on it.
Well, I guess innovation's the buzzword now, or disruption is another word for that, just because the pace of technology and the amplitude of change. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you look at innovation differently?
Well, I think part of it is, I think there's a distinction between disruptive innovation and innovation. Disruptive innovation is the Ubers, the Airbnbs, and situations like that, which have the potential to put you out of business. But innovation is really an end-to-end process that starts with an issue, problem, challenge, or opportunity and ends with the creation of value. And what I mean by that is it is not about ideas. It's just because you have a great idea or I have a great idea doesn't mean it's a good idea. I mean, in fact, the article I just posted this morning is great ideas, bad results. And so companies are drowning in a sea of ideas, and what we really need instead is to figure out what are the important problems we need to solve. What are the opportunities that if we focused on them would give us the greatest result? And then we would focus our energies on solving those the best way, which is not always the way we tend to solve problems. And that to me is really the key, is it's about this problem-solving mentality focused on the most important problems.
So I think that most companies, most leaders, that's their desires to become problem solvers and to really meet the client's needs, meet them where they're at. And yet so many times, time and again, we or the companies fail to achieve that objective. Can you share with us your opinion on why that occurs?
There's a few reasons. One of them is we do a very poor job of understanding our customers and what they need. So what happens is we have a good idea, we have a good capability inside of our organization. So we decide, well, of course people are going to want that. Well, no, that's not the way it works. There was actually a recent Accenture study that showed that the number one issue with innovation is that they fail to meet customer expectations. And number two was it takes too long to get new innovations to market. So given those, basically what we need to do is have a better way of being able to tap into the psyche, the deep latent needs of our market, and have a way of being able to deliver those results with speed. Because I think at the end of the day, innovation is not about new products, new processes, and new business models. It's actually really only about staying relevant. If the world's changing, as you said, if the world's changing, we need to change faster than the world. Because otherwise, if the pace of change outside our organization is faster than the pace of change inside our organization, we're not going to be relevant very long.
Right. Okay, so I definitely want to get to the pace of change and staying relevant, but back up just a little bit and talk about meeting clients' needs. And sometimes the clients stating that their needs perhaps are different than what their stated objectives are, maybe a little bit different. And I point to this because in some of your materials you talk about the subconscious and how that affects buyer preferences. And you gave a great example of hearing aids and how people often use not wearing hearing aids, the cost of hearing aids is the reason why they don't do it. But when a deeper study was conducted, it was more about the embarrassment of I'm losing my hearing and somehow there's something wrong with me or I'm a failure. And that many times, people aren't going to come out in a client survey and say something's wrong with me and that's why I'm not buying hearing aids. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about tapping into the unconscious and truly understanding what clients' needs are in order to innovate.
I think the key here is if you ask them questions, you will almost always get the wrong answers. So customer surveys and things of that nature don't work because we're leading the witness. We have a set of questions we want answered, and then we are basically, even we're doing this at a subconscious level, we are asking people to answer questions that we've framed that will then limit the range of possible solutions.
Right.
So sometimes the best things to do is, one of the big things in innovation is what's called ethnography, which is, that's actually not an innovation term, that's an anthropology term, but basically what we do is we observe. And we try to observe in an unbiased way. So if you really want to know how somebody is using your products or your services, the best thing to do is to observe them and try to observe them in a way that an anthropologist would observe people. So study them in an unbiased way where you try to not influence them, but you get to see them in their natural habitat as much as you can. Sometimes this isn't always possible, so what we want to do is if we're going to have conversations with people, what we know is stories tend to tap into the subconscious. And so what we want to do is focus more on, instead of saying answer these questions, tell us some stories, give us some metaphors. What color was this? When you were working with us, what color was this? Because we know metaphors actually tap very deep into the subconscious. And there's a really long, difficult topic, obviously, in one little conversation like this. We're not going to give everybody the tools to be able to better understand customers, but it's really recognizing that we don't want to lead people down a particular path. We don't want to give people too much information. The more we can be unbiased observers, the better off we are.
Right. So it's really about not so much as trying to channel the client's response, but rather perhaps leaving it a little bit more open and being in more questioning or observation mode. Would you say that's a good summary?
Absolutely. Yeah. Observation mode and storytelling mode, to me, are the key things. Is if you get people to just sort of talk about their emotions, like how did it make you, because if you ask people what were the features and functions you like, that's sort of like checklists. But, how did it make you feel? What were some of the challenges you faced? And if you ask people some more open-ended questions in a safe environment, you'll find you'll get sometimes some better answers.
Right. Okay, so getting back to where we were about staying ahead of the competition. So many times we see companies who kind of get left behind as a commodity while others are implementing tremendous change. How do you not get left behind? What are your suggestions there?
I think there's a couple points on this one. One is the commodity point, which is a separate point from being left behind. I think they're actually two different ones. So on the commodity point, there's this concept of differentiation. And basically, if you want to differentiate yourself, This is the reason why somebody would want to do business with you. And your differentiator is not something for you to claim or declare, but rather your differentiator is something that the market says about you. So your customers determine your differentiator. And the mistake a lot of people and companies and organizations make is they will sit around a table and say, well, how are we different than our competition? Or how do we want to be different than our competition? That doesn't matter. It's what does the market say? And being different isn't the same as being differentiated. Can I give you a quick story?
Sure, please. Stories are great.
I love this one because it's just so powerful. I used to live in Boston, and we would go down to Atlantic City just for a quick weekend, have a little fun, play a little slots or whatever. And there is a casino in Atlantic City called The Revel, built in 2012 for $2.5 billion.
Wow, that's a big gamble.
Big, very good. Good pun there. And it was a big gamble. So $2.5 billion. And the thing about The Revel is it was this high-end, sophisticated, classy casino. There was one problem. The people who go to Atlantic City aren't. The people who go to Atlantic City, if you ever watch, they're going to the beach with their kids. They're eating hot dogs and cotton candy. They may play penny slots, but that's about it. So the casino was built in 2012 for $2.5 billion. 2 years later, in 2014, it went bankrupt. It shut its doors. It's still closed. They're trying to bring it back. It will never come back the way it was. The problem is you don't get to determine your differentiator. The market determines your differentiator. And you have to create something that people want. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And if the market doesn't value it, it's irrelevant. That's being different for the sake of being different.
Interesting. And I guess that would go back to the client surveys and the observation and storytelling mode, or how would you resource your way into understanding from the client, how do they see you?
I mean, that's certainly part of it. You have to know your customers. Now, if you want, what they were really trying to do, which was an ambitious project, was to attract some people that were a little different than the people who came to Atlantic City in the past. Look, this could have worked. We could have been having a completely different conversation. Atlantic City could have turned into the Las Vegas of the East.
Right.
But it didn't. And it's easy for us to poke holes in some of these.
Hindsight's 2020.
It is. Mm-hmm. So, but I think it does highlight an important point, which is we have to be somewhat realistic. Not completely realistic, but at least somewhat realistic in terms of who we are targeting and what we create. And we've seen so many situations where there were great intentions, great ideas, or seemingly great ideas that just gave us exactly the opposite impact than they expected. So we really need to just get into the shoes of the market, observe them, understand them, and then maybe push them a little bit forward, but we're not trying to pull them so far away that it's like a completely different market. And if you're to do that, I would suggest you do that in steps rather than a $2.5 billion gamble.
Right. So not a complete paradigm shift, but gradual progression toward the end goal of innovation.
Yeah, I mean, in some cases, there are different ways to do it. So, and here's the most important thing with innovation is there's not a one-size-fits-all strategy. Mm-hmm. There are so many different ways to approach innovation. For every example that you have, which was a success, there are an equal number of examples that were failures. Mm-hmm. So it's important, and the reason why my book is called Best Practices Are Stupid is it's important for us to understand our culture, our objectives, our organization, and what we can create and what we want to create, and then only choose the practices that are appropriate for that. If we start choosing randomly, which is what most company A did this, we'll go try this, and then they tried and it failed. And that's usually what happens with most best practices.
So we start with best practices are stupid, but you're saying, one, differentiate. Know what your differentiator is and how your client sees you as differentiated. What would be the second step?
I think the second step is to really, once you know what your differentiator is, so you know what are the most important set of challenges you want to focus on, the next step would be to focus on the right questions that are framed the right way. And basically what I mean by this is it comes back to don't ask ideas. So I go into companies and they'll have suggestion boxes. People provide hundreds or thousands or in some cases hundreds of thousands of ideas, mm-hmm. of which usually a very small percentage, if any, are of any value.
Right.
So we don't want ideas. What we want to do is really start focusing on the challenges, the opportunities, the problems. And if we spend our time reframing those problems, because to me the key is, in many cases, it's not about thinking outside the box. I mean, so when people talk about innovation, they'll say, think outside the box. I say, don't think outside the box. Find a better box. The issue is not the expansiveness of your thinking. And when we talk about this in a deeper level, I will explain why big, broad, abstract questions always invite big, broad, abstract, and typically irrelevant solutions.
Interesting.
So the box constraints are actually really, really useful for innovation. The problem is we have the wrong box, and that's where the issue comes.
So basically, making a better box comes down to asking really good questions, is what I hear you saying.
It's asking good questions, and it's asking them the right way. So let me give you another story that I love. An airport was struggling with complaints about their baggage claim process taking too long. So what they did was it was about 15 to 20 minutes on average for the bags to get from the plane to the baggage carousel. So they took to task of speeding up the bags, which is what most of us would do. Okay, well, we want to get the bags there faster. So they spent tons of money on faster conveyor belts, more baggage handlers, and newer technology. And it actually worked out wonderfully. I mean, they went from 15 to 20 minutes down to 8 to 10 minutes. They were ready to declare success.
That's huge.
That's huge. And they go and they ask the passengers, now, what's your biggest complaint? What do you think they heard? It was baggage claim. They still thought it was taking too long.
Wow.
So
okay.
They knew that if it took this much money and time to get it down to 8 minutes, to get it to 7, 6, or 5 minutes would just be prohibitively expensive.
Yep.
Then they had an epiphany. They realized it took the bags 8 to 10 minutes to get from the plane to the baggage carousel, but it only took the passengers 1 to 3 minutes to get from the plane to the baggage carousel. So instead of speeding up the bags, what do you think they did? They slowed down the passengers. They literally reconfigured the airport. So it would take on average 8 to 10 minutes to get from the plane to the baggage carousel. They would get to the baggage carousel, their bags would be waiting. And I could tell you so much more about the story and the reason for it, but if you spend your life speeding up bags, you will never think to slow down passengers. The problem they were really trying to solve was reduce wait time. Reducing wait time is not the same as the speed of the bags. This is how we spend our life. We tend to focus on the wrong problem.
So interesting. So I hear a combination of things. First, clients, be careful what you ask for.
Yes.
And two, you had actually quoted in an earlier conversation Einstein saying, if he was given an hour to save the world, he would take 59 minutes to ask the right questions and then 1 minute to find the solution. Maybe I didn't say that quite right, but maybe you could refine that statement a little bit more so the listeners can understand.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is Einstein never said this exactly. He's reputedly quoted as saying this. He said something which was much more complicated.
Yep.
In essence, what he was saying is if I had an hour to save the world, I'd spend 59 minutes defining the problem.
There you go.
1 minute finding solutions. And from my experience, most people are running around spending 60 minutes solving problems that don't matter. So if you understand your differentiator, it will eliminate a lot of the problems you're working on. Is it going to truly set you apart from the competition, or is it just an also-ran? Are these table stakes? If they are, don't innovate on them. Find someone else who's already solved this problem better than you will ever be able to solve it. So that's the first part. The second part is then make sure you're even asking the right question. Are you speeding up bags? Are you slowing down passengers? Or are you reducing wait time? And there's a whole science and art behind asking better questions.
Interesting. Well, that's where people need to bring you in so that you can teach them that science and art.
That's what I tend to do is I'll go in and we will work first on their differentiator. We will then work on the challenges that they need to work on, and then we will spend that 59 minutes redefining the problem. And I have a methodology for redefining challenges that will help companies. And here's the great thing. When you redefine a challenge, if you keep on doing it, there will often be a point where the solution becomes obvious and the solution is simple and elegant. And the reason why a lot of innovations are complex is because they're trying to solve the wrong problem. So there's a fortune, let me give you a quick fortune cookie. I love this. This to me is like, when I read this, it's like, yes, this is it. It said, you always have the right answers. They just sometimes solve the wrong problems. That, to me, is the biggest mistake that companies make when it comes to innovation.
Well, what I hear you saying, really what it boils down to is slow it down so that you can gain better awareness of the environment and pick up the clues that are really there, as opposed to forcing your own solution and your own answer, which isn't fundamentally the answer.
That's a great way to put it. I mean, here's the reality: is the brain isn't wired for innovation. The brain is wired for survival. Mm-hmm. So as a result, what we believe at a very deep subconscious level is that everything we've done in the past was the key to our survival.
Right. Yeah.
Therefore, the brain doesn't want to change. What we've done previously is going to keep us alive. So let's do more. Let's do more of what we've done in the past. This is why I say expertise is the enemy of innovation. The more we know about a topic, the harder it is for us to think differently about it, because our neural pathways in the brain, which are designed for survival, are also designed to perpetuate the past. So we do need to, you said it right, we need to step back. We need to connect with people who are different than us. And there's a whole other topic around that.
Right, yes.
It's really fascinating how the brain is our worst enemy when it comes to innovation.
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned the pathways of the brain, and there's a whole science of neuroplasticity around that. But you also point to bringing people in who think differently than you. And that's one great way to, well, there's two things you're saying. One is create a better box. So slow and gradually change your framework of the way you view the problem, right? As opposed to quantum leap forward, and then the individual or the team or the organization can't adapt because the neural pathways are firing in such a way that just doesn't do that. The other thing is bringing people around you who perhaps have a different perspective and are not within the same lane or channel of expertise as you are, or your company is. Can you tell us a little bit about that diversity piece and how bringing people together with different skill sets or different perspectives help truly make a difference from when we talk about innovation?
Sure, and there is a lot of science behind this. So here's what we know. We know when it comes to breakthrough innovations, not incremental innovations, which are adaptations of the past, but incremental innovations, which are sort of discontinuous in nature, they come from people who are either from a different area of expertise or from multidisciplinary teams with people with different experiences coming together. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example of a group that I really love. I just think the concept is brilliant. It's called Pumps and Pipes. Pumps and Pipes is a group of cardiologists who get together on a regular basis with people from the gas pipeline industry. And basically what they share is what they know about the cardiovascular system and how it applies to the transmission of gas. And what they share in common is it's about the transmission of a fluid through a tube. So they're not two random groups coming together. It's not just, let's put together two people, two teams that we think are different, but they're purposefully different. They're adjacent. And if you think about the problem, so for example, gas pipelines, they crack, they break, they leak, problems to solve. It's expensive to seal the crack. Find the crack is expensive. To seal, it's even more expensive. The body doesn't have that problem. You get a paper cut, it seals itself.
Right. Uh-huh.
Now they have an inert coagulant ingredient that can go inside of gas pipelines that mimics the cardiovascular system. And so I encourage people to participate in something I call purposeful tangents. Purposeful tangents are basically something that is near what you do, but not exactly the same. So, for example, I'm in the world of innovation. I don't go to innovation conferences anymore as an attendee. I'll speak, but I don't attend. As I've learned, there's not a lot of new innovation in the world of innovation in the past 5 years. I'm hearing the same things.
Innovation isn't innovative.
You got to innovate the way we innovate. That's one of the topics. But I do spend a lot of time with neuroscience, psychology, sports performance, and my favorite has actually been magic. Because magic gives us insights into the brain, how we can misdirect the brain, how it gets confused. This is a big part of innovation. And it also is all about making the impossible possible, whereas innovation is about making the possible possible, and most of the time we can't even do that, but magicians are able to make the impossible possible. So those are my purposeful tangents. They give me brilliant insights into the brain and the workings of innovation.
So interesting. And actually, Stephen, I met you at an earlier conference, and you were so kind as to give me this book, Personality Poker, which, by the way, I've been using with other friends and playing with my own kids, actually. And it's your way, it's sort of your personality assessment in a really fun, interactive kind of way. And you use cards, a deck of cards, like a magician would.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about, we talk about this diversity piece and bringing people of different backgrounds and personalities, different perspectives together. Tell us a little bit more about your Personality Poker book and how that helps highlight the benefit of diversity and people working together.
So diversity is an interesting word, and it's at its core just means people who are different. Mm-hmm. And if you look at most diversity programs, they're focused on gender or ethnicity or things of that nature. But I just talked about diversity of discipline, cardiologists with gas pipeline engineers. There's also another form of diversity, which is diversity of thought and personality. And so one of the things which I've discovered is we tend to collapse creativity and innovation. They're so different. They're so different. Creativity has actually killed innovation in my mind because creative ideas have been the sea that has been flooding us where we're sort of drowning. Innovation, on the other hand, is a process. And creativity is part of it, but it's a process that starts with a challenge. We come up with solutions, we have to implement it, we have to engage people. So there are 4 steps of the innovation process. Define the challenge, find solutions, plan and execute, and engage the hearts and minds of people. And so I've known this, and what we find is when companies don't have the right people in the right roles to do that, they don't innovate well. So if you don't have the diamonds, which are the creative people, you will implement a lot of incremental innovation, which is good, but it's not going to be enough.
So when you say the diamonds, you're referring to a deck of cards, and the diamonds in the deck of cards refer to the creative people.
Exactly. So in personality poker, the diamonds are the creative ones, the spades are the analytical one, the clubs are the ones who are very much about getting the work done, and the hearts are, as you would imagine, about the relationships with people. Now, the suits, colors, and numbers all have meaning, so it's not as simplistic as I'm painting it. But what we know is if we are on our team missing any one of those styles, we will not innovate properly. And here's the problem. We always hear the expression opposites attract. There is irrefutable scientific evidence that opposites repel. They don't attract, they repel, they detract. And if you want examples of this, look at our political system. Watch what's happening right now in the elections. If opposites attracted, Republicans and Democrats would be aligned. They're not. They're shooting. I mean, everybody's shooting at each other right now, but that's the thing, is opposites do not attract. And so what happens is, again, this comes back to our survival mentalities. We want to surround ourselves with people who are like us, who are similar to us. Mm-hmm. And this is what we do when we hire. We have our culture. Our culture is the personality of the organization. We hire people who fit the culture. Well, the problem is we don't hire people who don't fit the culture, which means that we are missing an opportunity. So personality poker, I developed this so that you as an individual can play to your strong suit. Your team and organization, you can make sure you're playing with a full deck, which means you have all the different styles and the right roles. And then you can also make sure you're attracting and retaining and recruiting and promoting people that will have a good blend, not just a one-size-fits-all solution.
So, I actually have a story about how opposites work well within an organization. At the time, I, wasn't aware of this, and I thought it was somewhat disturbing, challenging at times, but I worked within an investment bank. And so the relationship managers were very outgoing and wanted to do the best thing for the client. And the credit officers cared about protecting the vault, the capital of the bank, and making sure that, we were mitigating against risk. So inevitably, they brought us together in a credit committee, and we had to get approval to do deals with our clients with the credit committee. credit committee and the client officers were typically at odds with one another and banging heads. And it turns out that was a very dynamic and useful process for the firm that I was working for and for many banks or investment banks, because it helps bring in the desire to meet the client's needs and where they're at, but also protect capital, because that's what banks need to do as well. So that's an example of where different personalities can work, well, maybe not work well together, but create a solution that works. Tell me a little bit about, I know you have a story about having worked with a partner that was a lot like you. And how did that work out for you?
Yeah, so I mean, you're highlighting. I'll tell you the story in a second. But what you're highlighting is something important, which is, people who are different. They're important for each other. They're critical for their success.
Yes.
They may not naturally get along because they have different objectives, different beliefs, different personalities. And so I would say the person you like the least is the person you need the most.
Mm-hmm.
Because the person who is like you, similar to you, is going to agree with you, and that's when you get yourself into trouble, is because, again, our brain has a very limited peripheral vision. We have very few experiences and very few motivations for us. So if you have the salespeople and the customer service people, if their whole target is to make sure they close the deal, they're going to do some things which may be dangerous for the bank.
That's right.
So they're really critical together, but they're going to get in each other's nerves.
Mm-hmm.
And so the story is, since we're recording this, I won't give all the details of it. But basically what it is that when I was working at Accenture, I was leading a very large 20,000 person group, and I was given an extremely large budget for a project. And on this project, I knew, because of the size of this budget and the complexity of the budget, I needed a co-leader. So I decided to choose this guy, John. And John was very much like me. This was before personality poker, but he would have been this creative heart. So he's a person who loves people love him, and he loves novelty. He loves doing new things. So we're working on this project. We're spending millions of dollars. Let's just say millions of dollars. And at the end of the project, there are three things that I can say. One was, we created more new ideas probably than any other project in the history of the company. Because that's what...
Awesome.
Yes!
Yes!
And the people were having a blast. Everybody in the project was like, yes, this is fun. We're having a great time. And the third thing is, it was the biggest waste of money I've ever seen in my life. Because John and I forgot we had to implement. We had to actually produce. We had flip charts and whiteboards and binders of ideas, but we never brought them together into a product that could actually be used.
Hey, but that's a perfect example of live and learn, because now look at you. You've learned from that experience and you're teaching it to others.
It was this is about over 20 years ago, and it was really my first time that I realized that I needed the people that annoy me. And so on the next project, I didn't get to choose my co-leader. He was given to me. He was the self-proclaimed anal retentive project manager who was in my face all the time, and he drove me. So, and this is an important point, is he drove me crazy. In the beginning, we were fighting. We didn't like each other. And then one day, I sort of reflected back on the previous project, and I thought, okay, clearly this new guy, Ray, is giving me something that is a gift. So I sat down with Ray and I said, Ray, I just want to tell you, I don't like you. You annoy me. I don't like all these restrictions. I don't like you being in my face telling me I have to have things done. It's really, I find it constricted and limiting. And he's like, look, but you got to produce. And so we found a way of working together. I began to appreciate his contribution, and he appreciated my contribution. And what we created is something which people still talk about 20 years later. It was probably one of the things I'm most proud of that we created. And it wasn't because of me. The budget was much smaller. The team was smaller, but it was Ray who kept me on the track. And so the reason why I bring this up is because diversity does not work on its own. Mm-hmm. Putting together a group of people who are different does not work unless you give them the tools to appreciate each other, to understand how they contribute to different parts of what you're doing. So it's not a natural act, but we have to do that.
Well, what are the tools? I understand communication obviously is a big component of that, and it builds compassion, understanding, and back to our original topic, awareness. But do you have any specific tools that people can use within their organizations to help bridge that gap, the gap of understanding?
I think the first one really is to have a conversation and just talk about, here's what I'm committed to, here's what you're committed to, and see how they line up. I think it's also fun to poke fun at yourself. So when we play personality poker, sometimes what we'll do is we'll have, let's say, the spades, who are the analytical ones, the know-it-alls, people who know everything. We have them talk about not what they're great at, but how they're going to annoy the heck out of everyone else. And so everybody's like, yeah, you do that. You're like the know-it-all. You're Sheldon. And it's nice so that people can poke fun at themselves a little bit. And then it opens things up. It's like, and then people are like, yeah, even though you're Sheldon, guess what? We need to know the information. If we've been solving the wrong problems, you guys are the ones who are going to help us better understand. So it's really just, it's not just an appreciation at a theoretical or conceptual level. You need to break it down into the work that you do. And so with innovation, we have 4 steps of the innovation process. And we talk about how each style ties back to each step, how they contribute, how they detract, why they're critical. And over time, people really, really have a deep, deep appreciation for one another. And I would say, here's the last part, is the great thing with personality poker is because it's not a written assessment. They are cards. The cards have words on them that describe traits like creative or analytical. You can give cards to other people. And when you do that, you can have a conversation as to why. Hey, I'm going to give you the empathetic card, because remember that time we were working together and everybody else was, ready to shoot each other, and you could understand how we were struggling, and you could actually, because of that, bring us together as a group. That's really powerful to see how other people see you, especially when a lot of times it's not how we see ourselves.
Right, yep. Mm-hmm.
So there's this triangulation of how we see ourselves at a conscious level, how others see us, and how we see ourselves at a subconscious level. And I've developed a test which will test the subconscious mind to determine what your personality is.
Wow. And where does anybody get to experience that test?
Let's see. It's on the website somewhere. We keep on moving it.
So you want to know what you could do is send me that link, and I'll be sure to include it into as a link on this podcast episode and direct them to where they can find it.
Yes, and also, of course, somebody can just write me. Go to my website and write me, and I will be more than happy to answer questions that they have and give them the link.
Excellent, excellent. So I hear, again, it kind of comes back to the differentiation thing, and the subconscious thing is sometimes you don't see how others see you, and that helps provide greater perspective and also allows us to tap into our own strengths and mitigate our weaknesses, I would say.
Yeah, and I don't worry about my weakness. Look, I have weaknesses. I guess here's the thing is,
I have no weaknesses, Stephen.
You have none, of course.
Okay. Let's just get that clear.
My goal is, so I know I'm a diamond, a bit of spade and a little bit of heart, which means that I'm primarily creative, experiential, with some analytical and some relationship oriented. But the thing I am not at all is a club, which is about plans, planning, actions, results. So what I know is that instead of trying to become good at that, I want to partner with people who are naturally good at that. And so that's why I say you want to play with a full deck. You want to make sure you're partnering with people who complement your hand in a way, not compliment like, hey, that's a nice hand, but complement with an E, where it's about filling in the holes in your hand. So I don't want to necessarily be good at everything, because I can't.
Right.
I need to differentiate. So I need to find people who differentiate in their way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm with those people.
So it's interesting. You actually helped me with my cards, through the deck, and I was a diamond, and I think it's a club where I'm creative, but also I'm action oriented and wanting to and needing to implement things. And you said that was somewhat unusual, which I thought everybody thought that way, Stephen. Right. So I just wanted to make sure that we've covered everything. You mentioned innovating where you differentiate, ask better questions, and breakthroughs. So the highest value solutions come from bringing different people together. Have we missed anything?
Let me just add one more piece to this, because I think this is really important, and it comes back to the brain. So there's something called confirmation bias, which is basically we will whatever information we receive, we will filter out anything that is inconsistent with our belief structure. So, and again, coming back to politics, this is so true. I mean, you could have somebody giving a presentation and the Democrats will hear completely differently than the Republicans. That's human nature. We filter out everything that's inconsistent with our beliefs. So, as a result, coming back to the beginning where you're asking about how do we gather information from customers, we're going to filter out anything from our customers that's inconsistent with what we believe. So this is a very dangerous thing. And without getting into all the details of it, I just want to leave you with a quote from Scott Cook at Intuit, because I think this is so brilliant. I wish I said it. He said, "For each of our failures, we had spreadsheets that looked awesome."
Yes, I experienced the same thing in lending. I would project forward, this is my client's performance is going to be, and it was never the same. But I think that's the nature of life, right? You think it's going to be, life is, wait, what is it? Life is what happens when you're making other plans or something. I totally botched that quote.
I think that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So, so this is the thing is we believe that the yeah, but is the enemy of innovation, and it's not. It's the wow, this is a great idea. Because if you all of a sudden get in your heart, soul, and gut that this is a great idea, you are going to do everything in your power at a subconscious level to prove that it is, in fact, a great idea. And so this is why we need to partner with people who think differently, people who are going to be the devil's advocate for what we're working on. We need to do experiments to test things out. And the concept of experimentation is too long for us to get into here, but it's important to just recognize that our brain is our worst enemy when it comes to innovating. Don't believe anything your brain is telling you, because it wants to fool you, because it wants you to just do everything you've done before.
And so the takeaway really is a couple of things. One is surround yourself with people who have a different perspective. That might include mentors. In the case of companies, it would be a board of directors that bring in different perspectives and diversity. But also you had mentioned this form of a mastermind, plumbers and what did they call themselves?
Pumps and pipes.
Pumps and pipes. And what a great idea to bring different...
It's pipes and pumps. You're backwards. It's pipes and pumps. And they're not plumbers. They're gas pipeline engineers. Okay. So it's like Exxon and companies like that, which are transmission.
My bad.
Gas and it's cardiologist. So pumps and pipes. Pumps and pipes. That's what it is.
Excellent. Excellent.
Keep on changing every time we say it.
All right. Well, I have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask all of my guests, and hopefully you will be able to just pour out your heart to me. Is there anybody in your life who is a mentor or very influential that caused you to have a step change or move in the direction you are today?
I've actually had quite a few who were instrumental in these big changes. So remember I talked about taking that leave of absence after I realized that my job was causing other people to lose their job. So I'd actually quit the company at that point. And there was my boss at the time, the partner in charge of our engineering practice, Bill Stoddard, who basically emptied out his budgets and everything. So even though I quit in my mind and I used up all my vacation, I used up my leave of absence, he kept on paying me this whole time so I could really start thinking about what I wanted to do. And he said, look, you're not ready to leave. It's time for you to come back. It might be different. And what I realized during that leave of absence, I wanted to help companies grow. And so I focused on this innovation. And so Bill helped me. He connected me with some people. He connected me with a guy by the name of Barry Patmore. Barry was the guy who became my partner in crime in creating this 20,000 person practice. He was the head of our process competency. And he brought me in to lead the process excellence practice, which was all about innovation. And I've had many people like that over the years. And I guess the thing which I've learned is the biggest opportunities come when you're persistent in your beliefs. Mm-hmm. So I was persistent in wanting to focus on innovation. And it was fortunate that I did, because who knows where I'd be if I actually quit at that point.
Yeah.
I'd have a completely different life. And fortunately, Bill saw what was possible, and Barry saw what was possible, and other people over the years have seen what was possible. And to me, that's the key, is find people who believe in you, who see your best, and want to help bring you forward into the world.
I really think that success is a shared journey, and that you don't do it alone. So that's great feedback. The other question is, are there any products and resources that you would share with the listeners or that you've personally used that you found helpful in your journey toward being known as the innovation king?
I don't know if I'm known as the innovation.
Yes, you are. Yes, I just labeled you that.
So I think part of it is just, recognizing that if you spend 100% of your time on your area of expertise, you're going to be limited in your ability to grow. So I would, read books that are tangential to what you do. One of my favorite books is a book by Richard Feynman, who is a Nobel Prize winning physicist, called Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. It is hilariously funny. It is ridiculously creative. I find it inspiring about how one of the smartest people in the history of our planet would experiment with how to get rid of ants by using chalk, and he wanted to figure out how can you open safes and learn to play bongos in South America. This guy is so fascinating. Everybody will love this book. And it really just gets me thinking about how instead of just studying physics like he did, he studied everything. And the more you study everything, as Steve Jobs said, creativity is just having enough dots to connect. Dots being ideas or experiences. And the reason creative people are so is they've either had more experiences or they've thought more about their experiences than other people. So I think that's really the thing which I found more than anything else.
Well, also I think the common thread is there's a sense of curiosity or fun that goes along with it. So the persistence you refer to in your life, there must have been some thread or some pull or some curiosity or some excitement about what you were doing. Would you agree?
Had to be. I mean, I do not believe do what you love and the money will come, or the money will follow. I don't believe that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't believe that you want to do what makes you miserable and make money at it, because that's not really a life. And so the question is, how do you do what you love? How do you, what is it that your desires, your calling, whatever word you want to do, how do you do that? Obviously it has to be consistent with what you're good at or have the ability to get skills at.
Right.
And then what creates value for others. And to me, at the end of the day, if you're creating value for others in a way that they will value it so much that they would pay for it, that is the key. But it's not about the money, it's about the loving what you do and matching that with needs in a market.
So this whole conversation, I mean, you could just rewind to the beginning of the podcast, sort of like a go-to loop,
yes.
Right? I mean, it applies not only to companies, but also to individuals. What's your differentiating factor? How can you make an impact? And then why are people drawn to you because of that? And it's the same with companies as it is with self-discovery, I think.
Totally. Because if you are just replicating what everyone else is doing, I would say replication isn't innovation, because by the time you've implemented someone else's best practice, they're on to the next practice.
Right. You're in their dust.
So you need to play in the white space. You need to find things that make you not unique for the sake of being unique, because I think that's a mistake, but find something which people will value that someone else is not currently providing. And I do that in a number of different ways, which I think has really been part of the reason, not the only reason, but part of the reason for where I am right now is I don't do what everyone else is doing. A lot of the things that I've developed, the concepts, the products, are fundamentally different than any one of my competitors, and I think that makes me stand out.
Thus the name of your book, Best Practices Are Stupid.
Absolutely.
My last question, actually it's not my last, my second and last. My next question is ambition quote. I like to ask all my guests if they have an ambition quote that they'd like to share with the listeners that means something personally to them.
I think I gave my quote already, and I'll just give it again, and I'll just elaborate. This may not sound like an ambition quote, but for me, okay. It makes me smile. It's the you always have the answers. They just sometimes solve the wrong problems. And
yeah.
I know this doesn't sound. It's like really but I think this. To me, it is brilliant in its simplicity, which is, if you want to be ambitious around the things that you should be ambitious around.
Yeah.
Don't be ambitious around everything, because you can't be great at everything.
Right.
So figure out what's most important and become masterful at that. And most important is what you love and what will create value. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it can't be just what you love, and it can't just be what creates value. So I think that fortune cookie there, I'm going to call that my my quote of the day.
That's excellent. One last question. My mission is to spread big ideas from ambitious leaders, and I like to bring fabulous guests on like you. Is there anybody that you would recommend that you know and you can introduce me to as a potential future guest on the Ambition Project show?
Oh, I've got a long list of people I'd be happy to introduce to you.
Excellent.
So I will gladly do that offline.
Okay.
Because I don't want to bore people with a very long list of amazing people.
So stay tuned to my listeners is what I hear you say. So I want to point everybody to the fact that they could find you at StephenShapiro.com, and that's Stephen with a PH. And you could sign up for his newsletter and get 5 free chapters of his Best Practices Are Stupid, which I downloaded, by the way, and there's just such rich content there for free. So I encourage everybody to get over there and check them out.
Thanks.
You can also find links to these resources and everything else we've been chatting about on today's show by going to theambitionprojectshow.com. And again, to learn more about Stephen, go to StephenShapiro.com. And if you've loved this episode, please head over to iTunes and subscribe to the Ambition Project Show. You can also find me on my website at theambitionprojectshow.com. And hey, while you're at it, leave an honest review. I love the feedback so I can make the show even better. Stay ambitious, get out there, and make the world a better place, my friends. And Stephen, keep going and getting at them. And someday, hopefully, we can work together.
That would be fun. Thanks.
That would be awesome. Okay. Thanks, Stephen.
Bye.